And that return is called a capitalization rate. So when we are trying to determine, or when an appraiser is trying to determine the value of the property, he will find out what the net operating income of that property is, and then divide it by the cap rate, the rate that the investor wants for the return on his money. And dividing the NOI by the cap rate will give you the value of the property. That way your investor will know what he should offer for that property to generate the same amount of income that the present owner is generating. Okay. The cap rate for a property in the area can be determined using past sales, and that allows the appraiser to estimate the present value of the property even though it has not yet closed. Remember, in the sales comparison, it had to be closed before you could do anything with it. But in the income capitalization, it does not. Okay. Capitalization definition is the process of converting estimated future income into present value. You need to know that definition. The process of converting estimated future income into present value. And your NOI, net operating income, is the calculation of future income based on a property's annual net operating income. And we're going to talk about how to find that net operating income. Here's your formula. Potential gross income, PGI, minus collections and vacancies, and that'll be a percentage, equals effective gross income. And then from the effective gross income, subtract your operating expenses, and that gives you your NOI, net operating income. Now, your operating expenses will be any expenses spent operating that business. It does not include debt service, which is your mortgage payment. It does not include capital improvements, and it does not include depreciation. So those three are never included as operating expenses. But any other expenses that investor has with connection to that property is an operating expense. Utilities, insurance, taxes, maintenance, repairs, security, management fees, all those. The three that are not counted as operating expenses: capital improvements, debt service, which is your mortgage payment, and capital improvements. Oh, I've named that one, didn't I? Capital improvements, debt service, and depreciation. Those three are not operating expenses. Okay. Any other questions about what cannot be counted as operating expenses? Okay, very good. Okay. When you are doing your net operating income, one of the ways, repeat. Okay. Christiane, you want me to repeat the three that you cannot count as operating expenses? That is capital gains, depreciation, and mortgage payment or debt service. One way one of my students determined a way to remember this formula was please vacuum each office nightly. Yes, I do want to move that chat to the other side. Thank you. There you go. Thank you, Stephanie. Okay. All right. Your net operating income is going to be income from anything on that property that generates income. Rents is going to be your biggie, but there may be coin-operated laundry. There may be storage buildings, maybe assigned parking spaces that you pay for, anything, vending machines out by the pool, anything that generates some income is going to be counted as income for that property. And then your vacancy and collection rate is how many of those units are empty, how many are generating no income at all, and how many of them are their tenants late paying their rent. Late paying their rent is the bad debt collections, and the units that are vacant is your vacancy rate. And they'll always give you that as a percentage. So you do your gross income as though everything is occupied. May tell you there's 25 apartments that rent for $1,000 a month. You count all 25 of them and then deduct the percentage that they give you for collections and vacancy. If you're at the beach during the summer, you may have a very low vacancy and collection rate, but in the winter, you may have a very high vacancy rate because people don't go to the beach as much in the winter as they do in the summer. The mountains, I think, is a little bit different. And some of you from up in the mountains, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But I think of the mountains being sort of as year-round. People love to go up there in the winter to ski and like to go up there in the summer just because it's nice. So I think that's more year-round than the beach. So you may not have as much vacancy, different seasons in the mountains. Okay. All right. Then you deduct from your effective gross income your operating expenses. And that's your taxes, your insurance, repairs, replacement reserves, management fees, taxes, insurance. All those things are your operating expenses. Okay.
Gosh, really?
This slide lists the three things that are never included in your operating expenses: the depreciation, the debt service, and capital improvements. Todd says they have a downtime in the mountains in the early spring and early fall. Slower time of the year for short rental. Okay, thank you, Todd. And Heather says entire industry is seasonal. Issue in the mountains is no one wants to move in the snow. I can see that. And then, Harold, are you still sick, honey? I'm sorry. Okay. Once you deduct your operating expenses, then you have your net operating income, and that's what is used to determine the value of that property. Net operating income, or NOI. And then you divide your NOI by a cap rate that the lender wants return on his money to see what the value of that property is. Here's your formula. I call it the IRV formula. Income divided by rate equals value, or income divided by value equals rate, or value times the rate equals the NOI. If you remember the T-bar and what goes where, you'll always have two of these numbers. And if you know two, then you can put it in the T and figure out what the third number is by either multiplying or dividing. Any questions about the formula? Okay. Let's look at an example. Your potential gross income is $66,000 a year. Your collections or bad debts is $1,320. That's 2%. Your vacancy is 3%. Subtract those two, and it gives you your effective gross income. And then from your effective gross income, subtract your operating expenses. And that will leave you with your NOI. Ebony, let me know when you're finished with this slide, honey. While we're waiting for Ebony, do you have any questions, anybody? Oh. All righty. Any questions about this problem? You always do your income as annual. Always do annual. And then your expenses and your collections and vacancy is annual as well. Okay, here are your formulas again. NOI divided by the